So, hi everybody. Welcome to our second webinar. The topic tonight is women's cricket, and to present that is our Director of Cricket, Qasim Ali, who will take care of the presentation after a good collaboration with our colleague Valdo Hood leading up to tonight's event. So I give the word to you, Qasim.
Thanks, Monica. Welcome to everybody. Hope you're well. Hope you're wintering well. And hopefully we can have a good interactive session today regarding our topic, which is women's cricket development. Just to start off with, just want to say a quick thank you to Valdo for his collaboration and his efforts for providing information. So thank you, Valdo. Just before we start, there's obviously a few people on. Just going to let you have a quick chat between the introduction. I want to get a real flavor for our audience today. I see a couple of players, I see a couple of administrators, and also a couple of coaches as well, which is great. And at some point, we're going to have a little bit of interaction on how we can do better activity for the women's cricket development. So just to start off with, we're just going to go through a couple of house rules in terms of the agenda. So where we at in terms of a current view, in terms of Cricket Sweden and the women's development. We're going to talk a little bit about the domestic structure, have an overview of international cricket and where we are and the current experiences that we had through Nordic, which was a little bit before my time, but also more interestingly throughout the summer and obviously into the Spain series and what's coming up. A chance for you guys to ask your questions, whether you're a player, administrator, coach, whether you're a fan of women's cricket in Sweden or whether you're a novice or somebody who's new to the game, you've got a chance to ask your questions. And then in terms of a little bit of housekeeping, so this webinar is really about women's cricket. It's not about any political stuff that's happening in Sweden or any other issues that are happening. This is not a platform for anything regarding men's cricket or youth cricket. This is purely about women's cricket and how we're going to get this stronger for longer in Sweden. So if you've got any other questions, if it's not relevant to women's cricket, please try and keep that to a different format, or you can email me directly, which I will give you that opportunity with my email address. In terms of other housekeeping then, so this session is being recorded. If you would like a copy of the slides or segments, they can be distributed out through Monica or a request from there. We also have a chance to ask questions, and that can be done through two aspects. One is through the chat room, so you can post your private question on there, which Monica will pick up and she can sort of redirect that to me and we'll answer that tonight. Or if it's something a little bit more personal and a bit more of a deeper issue, you can again email me and hopefully we can address that straight away. With regards to our newsletter, obviously a chance to subscribe to that as well, that would be great. We've got an opportunity to really forecast our achievements and most importantly announcements. So if you can subscribe onto that, that would be great moving forward. Lastly, hopefully everybody's muted, so it gives me a chance to sort of get my message across without any distractions. If you have the urge to unmute, please just bear in mind that the background noise will be a distraction, not just to myself, but everybody else. So really appreciate if you could just keep it on mute towards the end, and you will get a chance to ask your questions. So thank you very much. Okay, so looking into current achievements, obviously we've had some fantastic work done by Waldo in the office. He's been instrumental towards year one of the project for women and girls in domestic. It's important at this stage to identify there will be two segments to this this presentation. One will be related about domestic cricket and obviously international. So we'll start off with the domestic stuff. And obviously what some of the achievements and the goals that we've had have been met quite comprehensively. Obviously, to meet ICC requirements to fulfill 8 teams was a huge achievement, but most importantly, a pivotal point in trying to gain some qualification points as well. We've managed to do that. The challenge is now to maintain that and obviously exceed and progress our neighbouring countries and trying to grow that within Sweden. So we're obviously setting our goals up to over the next couple of years to try and get up to 12 and 14 teams. They are quite lofted goals, but we're definitely going to sort of try and get there. We also looked at more female umpires. We've got 4 qualified female umpires, which we're providing great opportunities for to go and express and get better opportunities at becoming better umpires. We're doing that through the women's game, but actually we want to get to a stage where one of the goals for these 4 umpires is to get up to national qualification in terms of doing home and away series, for our national squad. So this is something that we're trying to build towards. We also want to get more female coaches, and one of the key areas for us to get identify is great coaches who are from a female background and can develop their skills and be qualified enough with experience and understanding of good coaching tools to be working not only in juniors, youth, but also amongst our national sort of program as well. So this is an area that we have, and we've got 3 qualified at the moment, where we will hopefully over the next couple of years, we're looking to progress that into a little bit more in terms of numbers wise, and we've outlined in our strategy. Obviously from an awareness from a female perspective in Cricket Sweden, we at the SCF, we definitely recognise that there is a need for building a brand identity and a little bit of a role clarity in terms of brand awareness for our players. And over the next 3 years, one of the key areas for us in my cricket strategy is to give a little bit more awareness to our international players, but also our local cricketers in terms of the good work that they're doing, but also giving them a little bit of recognition in terms of giving them an opportunity to be the next generation, role models for the next generation of youngsters coming through. We want to do that through storytelling. We want to do that through content awareness. We want to also share the success and the hard work that we have, that the girls have achieved, and the journeys that they've been through in order to get to their national squads. And we've got some fantastic little segments coming up in women's cricket. And probably the last one for us was obviously trying to get a debut in our international series abroad, and we managed to do that in Spain, which was a little bit of an eye-opener for various aspects, but most importantly, it was a great opportunity for our girls to express their skills and compete with some of the better teams in the neighbouring countries, but also set their own marker down, which was fantastic to see. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next segment. I think the key thing also to mention here is that club development is important. We are giving part of our goal is also to talk about developing women's cricket, and one of the key areas that we spoke about is providing funding for any clubs that want to develop cricket and have got the opportunity to develop women's cricket. There is a funding scheme out there, and that will pay you up to 10,000 kronor to try and get better segments in women's cricket into your club. So we're not just looking for a team, we're looking for a club section. The difference between team and club is we don't want it to be a single entity. We want to develop clubs that actually have a pathway, have a real coaching structure, have an opportunity to sort of get into, a real longevity of their delivery as well. So that's one of the key things and one of the key messages that we're trying to sort of get out of this presentation, but also a key message to get out to across Sweden. If you are interested in developing a women's section, but don't really know how to go about it, there is an opportunity to get some funding out there and support yourselves. So just moving on to our pathway, quite clear, it's quite comprehensive as well. There's obviously an opportunity to start at the bottom where it's schools cricket. We want to inspire the next generation of female cricketers, and that's an area that we've recognised through the work that we're doing with the Federation and some of the colleagues that are delivering in schools project. This, for me, needs to sort of almost double in our activity and also needs to be recognised as the value of where we really start to inspire the next generation of female cricketers. So we really need to focus on that a little bit more, and hopefully over the next couple of years, not only will the funding support that, but also the passion of delivery will support that as well, and the acceptance in schools cricket. Obviously moving into youth, this is an area which we have a little bit of activity with, but we also have this grey area between youth cricket and sort of stepping into seniors cricket. At some point, we would love to have a youth cricket program for females only, at the ages of 13, 15 and 17, moving into obviously an under 19s and obviously a senior league. We, unfortunately, from a Sweden perspective, we are aware of that. But what we would like to do is have that pipeline in place where we actually want to have youth development leagues in place, and we want to sort of be progressing our women's cricket into a progressive pathway where they can actually step up into senior cricket in a safe environment. What the challenge is at the moment is we've got some young players, of the ages of 12, 13, 14, who are playing senior cricket, and that in itself has its challenge from a safety perspective, but also from a skills perspective, but also from a numbers participation perspective. So it's a fine line between keeping the competitive cricket going, but also keeping it safe. And my big thing is that, we want to sort of, in order for the top end of our spectrum to be progressive and challenging, we have to make sure that our senior league cricket is comprehensive, but also staying as close as realistic to the game of cricket as possible. I've heard some wonderful, very strange stories about what's happening, but we want to make sure that that's progressive. One thing that I would say to the clubs, and this is probably for you coaches out there, is, and also for the players playing in senior cricket, is if you are confident that your 12, 13, 14-year-old girl is safe, first of all, has the skill set to play senior cricket, and is learning along the way in the environment that she's in, then I would say you've got to make that decision in order for young girls to play in that senior environment. If you feel that they are not, then it's on you to take some responsibility and take them out of that, even if it means having one female down in your 11-man squad or 11 female squad. I would go on the element of safety precaution as opposed to just playing them for the sake of playing. So take some responsibility, coaches, and this is an area which is really crucial at the moment because it does have negative effect on long participation as well. So I'm mindful that these questions are out there at the moment. We then go into obviously our regional performance squads, which is very similar to the JPL and the SPL, where we have an opportunity to get 4 regional teams together of the best players competing for a national selection. This is a chance where our scouts will go out, go and watch some competitive cricket, some quality cricket, and assess the skills, and obviously invite the players, the females, back to these regional squads. And we will be looking to have this in early April in order to fit in with our strategy for next year. And then the best players will obviously get selected into the top 2 teams, which is new for this year in terms of our development squad. We have an opportunity to be part of the additional squad in the national structure, where we have 11 players playing for the national team, and then a further 14 players selected in our national development squad, making it a squad of 25 players is what we're aiming for. And hopefully you will get to see the girls who have been selected this summer round. So it's quite clear in our bottom-up approach, but we want to ensure that our national game is progressive, but that can only happen through having a competitive league structure and obviously bringing lots of young females into the game by inspiring them at an early age. Okay, so one of the things that I want to highlight over my years of working in female cricket and men's cricket, to be fair, and I see the disparity between the 2 departments. Often my understanding with making an inclusive environment so that girls do feel welcome, but also have an opportunity to sort of express themselves. And this is, again, one for coaches and also one for administrators, but also clubs who are out there, is if we can sort of try and put some of these aspects into play, you might find that you get a few more girls, 1, staying in the game for a little bit longer, but also 2, actually taking it up as a professional sport, which is what we want to do in order to get the quality of our cricket at national level as strong as possible, so we can compete with the best out there. So some ideas, obviously working over the last sort of 10-15 years in Lancashire, working with the England Women's Academy, working in UAE as a head of cricket, and also working with the UAE national teams. The girls that are coming through there, and having 4 or 5 players on my academy program I can tell you that some of these elements are the softer skills, and these have a huge factor in trying to get more girls playing the game. So I'll just go through these, and then you can, hopefully some might resonate with you. Some of you guys might already be doing this, and if you could just take one or two away, to make better for next year. Hopefully, we're making a more inclusive environment. So, some of the girls, they do want to be treated like everybody else, like the boys. They want to have the same effort and commitment towards their coaching session. So if it's a strong session, they want to be given a strong message. They want to be put through the challenges. They want to have a regular structured coaching program which is in place. They don't want to be the second mentality of the structure in the club. They want to be treated equally. So if you can use your language accordingly or use your structure accordingly to put them first, you might find that they will buy into the program a little bit more. The regular offering of structured sessions needs to be consistent, and it needs to fit in with the girls' timings of their, a little bit around their social calendars or their studies or their opportunities of everything that they're doing outside of cricket, or their responsibilities within work, home life, and often, family life. So that is something that needs to be, really considered when you're sort of selecting your coaching sessions. The area around mixed sessions is, yes, females like to be within their own group, but at some point, in order to challenge them, you can have similar sessions with, say, the under-19s or under-17s, where it's safe and it's progressive, but it's not over challenging or done in a harmful way. If you can create that environment and create that challenge, create that opportunity, you will find that the girls might progress a little bit quickly, and also their learning will progress a little bit more in terms of what good cricket looks like. Around the kit, obviously one brand, one club. I often see where, girls are dressed in pink and all outfits are pink and stuff like that, and that's great. But majority of my experience is the girls actually want to be dressed the same as what the boys are, because they're part of a club, not part of a team where it's just a girls' team. So there's a difference in strategy and approach. But again, speak to the girls in terms of trying to find out what their branding looks like, whether they want to be all out and all different, or whether they want to be part of a club, which often you can see the difference in the representation as well. I've spoken about highlighted there, the changing facilities, make it inclusive. And often when, sometimes I see girls, players are getting changed in fields and stuff like that. You almost have to value the importance of getting change for females, a changing environment for them. And obviously with no time restrictions, we often sort of get there late, or, teams could be, warming up very quickly, etc., but especially in the cool down as well, and they might be going on to something else, a family event, etc. So just understand the timing element in terms of the changing facility as well as what the time is required. The language that we use for the girls, often it's can be very crucial in terms of trying to keep the girls involved. It's a universal language that we're trying to use. It's around sport. It's not directed to, she did this, she did that. It should be quite universal about cricket. And often you find is, speaking to a lot of girls, is that they get disheartened by the fact that they, it's a target on the individual as opposed to the sport and the athlete. So if we can speak about athletes more in the terminology, as opposed to she or this young girl, etc., etc. So it is about your language to try and get people involved a little bit more. The quality of the session, so a balance between technical coaching, but also comfort in the environment, but also challenging in the task. So that's an area that needs to be challenged and looked at, but also for coaches to provide comfort, support, give some technical input, which is understanding, not too challenging, but also progressive in terms of the learning. Coaches. So this is one for coaches being involved in the session. It's about mixed experiences, and it's not around gender defined. So often we have the notion, or more female coaches should be coaching women's cricket. yeah, that's great to get females involved in cricket, but actually in a high performance environment or a club cricket environment, you often see more male coaches working in there, and that can also have its challenges, but can also be progressive in its advancements. What I would say is trying to work with your best experienced coaches and also complement, developing the next generation of cricket coaches from the opposite gender as well. So allow them to have that experience and what that looks like. Obviously, equipment, make it available, make it hygienic, clean for them to sort of be involved in. Females are more particular about hygiene than some male environments, in my experience. And the timing of the session, so social engagements and educational requirements, especially around studies and exams and universities and A levels and stuff like that, is very, very important to consider, especially when things are happening after sort of the age of 15, 16, 17. Social engagements, the timing of that, getting more involved with friends and social outings and stuff like that is very important. So it can be a detrimental effect to getting more girls involved. So just be careful on the timings and consider that when you're planning your sessions. And this element of girls first, not a secondary mentality. If you're going to be a progressive club in domestic cricket, I think we have to have the element of girls first. And everything about that needs to be driven by the culture that we sort of gonna adopt in Sweden. So it has to be not a secondary approach. It has to be first. The culture has to be understanding of the surroundings. We have to be able to be acceptable and approachable, but also understand that some of the players from a girls' environment might not be at the level that you expect from the same age from a boy's perspective. So we have to be mindful in their transition, their cricket development, but also the non-linear development. So it could be their sporting development, their bodies. I've put in there the menstrual cycle is hugely important in women's cricket, but often has a huge impact in performance, which might not be as clear to coaches, especially if you're not from the same gender, and how that affects sleep, fatigue, performance, rest, and everything else that goes with the human cycle. So obviously it's an underlining rule, but it needs to be addressed and accepted that is what happens. And sometimes some of the girls might just be having a bad day, purely because of not what's happening on the pitch, but what's actually happening within themselves. So something to be mindful of. I've put social engagement sessions need to be considered. Girls feel more comfortable around social environments, inclusive sessions, in order to get them to come out of bring their personality out a little bit more, get to understand their behaviors a little bit more, and then hopefully you might see a different side to them, obviously, when they're playing. And I think that's hugely important. And often, the last one I've got on there is often we see, the communication breakdown to keep more girls involved in club sessions. What we see is, the parent-coach relationship sometimes can be either distant or can be, quite offensive, or can be quite, broad in that sense. So what I would probably say is, if in a coaching environment you have a team manager that can also support the communication to the parent, because often the parents that are bringing the girls down are probably going to be more than likely, in my experience, it's been the mother that brings the daughter down. But I mean, again, it needs to be an approach where we have an opportunity for the key messages to go back out to the parents. Now, that might be a newsletter, that might be a regular text message, that might be an appraisal meeting, that might be a regular phone on the chat. It can be a number of different things, but often what I found is that the parent sometimes doesn't want to go to the coach because they might feel like it's intrusive, or it could be a detrimental effect to the team selection and stuff like that. There might be an element for coaches to have a second person who potentially could be the middle gap or the bridge between the two. So these are just ideas of trying to make your environment a little bit more inclusive, especially around domestic cricket, to get more girls involved. I'm happy to hear if there's, other areas that have worked really well. And, I can keep building a list like this, to sort of send out to clubs. So hopefully we can work on that together. So, yes. Okay, so the other thing around domestic cricket in Sweden, we are looking at developing our ICC training program for our coaches. We have identified, obviously, the need for coaches and umpires within our structure. There is a clear pathway there for our umpires and coaches to go through, right up to sort of level 3 if you wanted to do it. The ICC Foundation coach is free there. There's a link at the top over there, which will take you to that. And you can do that in your own time. Both it's actually open to female and males. So you can do that. One of the goals that a couple of goals that we've set in the next 3 years is to have 10 female coaches, at level 1. So we want to get our coaches qualified and up the ladder, and you can quite clearly see our KPIs that I've put in place to sort of make sure that we have got some progressive coaches working in Sweden. So again, level 2 coaches, female coaches, we were looking at 5 coaches, and then hopefully trying to get 2 female coaches on the level 3 program. And in terms of mentorship, through myself and 1 or 2 other level 4 coaches, I'm happy to sort of mentor both from a male perspective and a female perspective. Some of my close friends who are happy to do that from a female background, who are progressive in county cricket across England, are happy to sort of mentor some of the girls through their coaching structure. So that's an area that we want to get more coaches, giving them an opportunity to progress into the coaching field. And so I would strongly urge, if there's some listeners out here, or if you know somebody who's either coming to the end of retirement of playing, or wants to take up a new profession, or has the urge or the passion to be a coach and wants to give it a go, please, at the end of this, please get in touch. We are looking for, future tutors. So you might be a teacher, or you might have really good communication skills and want to use them in a different environment. We are looking for tutors. We are looking for umpires to get involved. We're looking for scorers, volunteers, and probably the other area that we haven't really touched on in female cricket is physios and medical staff. So as a profession, you might be a physio. If you know somebody who is, please, ask them to get in touch. We are looking to support our national and regional teams with the right qualified individuals. And it would be good to hear from set individuals. In terms of coach development, we are looking, one of the areas that I've put into place for next year is trying to get more female coaches involved in our youth cricket, but from a mixed environment, but also from a regional cricket development squads, and also our national teams, to get more coaches involved, to give them an opportunity to shadow in our environment, but also learn some of the skills on the job as the time goes on. And we are always looking for supporting help to come and help our coaching program. So the next slide is, some of you girls might recognize some of the pictures. Women's cricket is definitely a reality, and it can be a reality in Sweden. It can be a leading force in Sweden if we implement a couple of the activities which we've highlighted here. In terms of our strategy, what we want to do is get more females playing in schools and have better activations. And there might be a school near you. You might want to volunteer into the coaching program. There might be an opportunity for you to revisit some of your old schools and go and help out if you're a player, to try and upskill or encourage more females or junior kids in schools to go and play cricket. We want to increase the number of clubs that have a women's section, and we want to make sure that it's progressive but also inclusive in terms of trying to set that up. And there is some funding support around that, but there are also some club development opportunities around that as well. We want to get more successful women playing and understanding the requirements from a coaching perspective, and I've just outlined the opportunities to get involved in that. And we want to provide challenge and support for our our cricket, but most importantly, across our pathway. And that's got to get better as time goes on. I remember being involved in Chancellorshire in England maybe about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and women's cricket was just starting to flourish. And 15 years later, is one of the leading forces across the world, with multiple different format crickets happening, and the national structure is excellent. So there's nothing stopping Sweden aspiring to be anything like that. So it can definitely develop into a strong section. We want to get more female coaches qualified and administrators involved in the game. We want to have more tutors who can deliver our coaching programs, if it is to a female only, or get involved in our cross tutor program for the male delivery as well. We want to have excellent visibility, build a brand association for women's cricket, and we want to be a leading force across our neighbouring countries and Europe in terms of developing a hard structure which allows us to be at the forefront of women's cricket. So, and probably the last one is have a better acceptance around the culture and the requirements of the game. So it is a reality. It can be a huge success if more of this is done. But there are challenges currently with that. There's a lot of opportunities to make that quicker and better, more successful. And hopefully over the next 3 years, we will have an opportunity to put the milestones in place with some of the infrastructure that we're trying to create. So we have, towards the back end of this domestic element segment of the webinar, is there any questions from the audience or anything in the chat room, Monica, which you feel I could potentially ask or answer? And just whilst we're doing that, I'm going to obviously thank Valdo for providing some information. He is the project manager for the women's cricket. His email address is on there. If you would like to get in touch with him, whether you want to take up the sport, whether you want more information around the funding of getting a women's cricket section set up, or how you can get more involved to develop the game across Sweden.
Kasim Matula here from Lund Cricket Club.
Hi, Matula, how are you?
I'm good, fine, thank you. How about you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Yeah, in one of the slides you have been showing regarding the facilities, that unlimited use of the facilities and all for the girls. And that's the biggest challenge for us today, the facility. We don't have a Lund Cricket Club. I've been looking for a facility for the last 10 years and the community is not been able to provide. Been totally struggling with all this. We have the girls who want to play, but we don't have a facility that we can just go and play unlimited where we want to. Everything is so money oriented in Sweden here, then we don't have that fundings as well. So that's for me, as per today, is the biggest challenge. It's facing specifically not for the girls, for the full club what we have in Lund. And part of the time we have been thinking that, okay, it's such a mess that in Lund that we have not been able to get things, because it's going from one table to another table. And I have been discussing with SCF, I have been discussing with RF, I have been discussing with commune. But since there is very less heat being paid, it feels frustrated sometimes that what the hell, why are we doing this effort? Because we are working people. I am working, I have a job, I am doing everything as a passion, free of cost, everything, but there is no support from the commune. Sometimes I feel a little bit dejected here. Is there a for the women's project, specifically for, I'm talking about the women's project here now, because it has been shown in the women's project, that is there something to improve or to motivate the girls part of playing more cricket here? Because at part today, I'm playing only one session a week, which is, I don't think it is 2 hours a week is just enough for the girls at all.
Yeah. First of all, can I just say thank you for your question? Both points are very relevant. Facilities have been a challenge throughout, not only in the female department, but also in the male department from a club perspective. It's something that, as a federation, we are addressing. We don't really have a solution at the moment, but we are acknowledging the fact that it needs to be addressed. And there are areas of improvements that need to be addressed as quickly as possible. This is something that Monica is fully aware of. The Federation is fully aware of. Obviously, you know that there's other elements in play in Swedish cricket at the moment, which I'm not going to get into. But we have, there are huge areas that we need to improve on to try and get better facilities for our girls to feel confident, feel supportive, but also feel safe in facility access. That's one thing. The second thing is, most importantly, is about hopefully we are trying to tackle this. If I could maybe take this offline with you, because what I see from you and what I hear from you is the passion. I hear about the development. I hear about the ultimate support that you want to give as a working person, as a volunteer. But it seems like you've really got you're frustrated with some of the avenues that you're taking because they're probably not giving you the answer. So if I could take this offline with you and maybe pick it up in a separate area, because the one thing is, individuals like yourself, without you, the Federation would not have a structure in place. So I want to make sure that your support is there, but also I want to make sure that the element of cricket is growing in your area. And one thing that I would humbly request is, please don't give up your
I'm not going to give up that soon, for sure.
Yeah, because that's good. But I think there's some wonderful players at your club, because I've seen a couple of them, and I think there's a lot of things that we could potentially do to support your club, but also from a cricket federation point of view, that I think there's some areas that we might need to do in order to keep it running for the longevity. So let me take this offline. You have got my you've got my email. Actually, email at the end of this. So we'll pick up that if that's okay. Yeah.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate that. Monica.
Yeah, we have. In response to that, Matula and I, we have talked about also the challenges in Lund. We are cooperating well with that, but there are challenges in many areas around Sweden in that respect. We have a raised hand. I think Andy would like to ask a question.
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Yes, on very similar lines to what Lund Cricket Club. I didn't want to waste time, but if you're having this discussion about lack of sanitation, hygiene and stuff, I would be interested to be part of the discussion and understand the solutions and not ponder on it. So I would be really interested to talk about what is a solution that we can come up. Not a temporary fix, but we need some permanent fixes, because we've been running. We are new. We have a women team for the last 2 years. I'm one of the coaches, and I have these challenges like Lund Cricket Club. So we have players turning up for the practice sessions, but we don't have a changing facility in Stockholm in the grounds. Though theoretically, yes, we do have them, but getting access to that is it's near to difficult. So I would like to discuss about this from Stockholm. So just loop me in the discussion.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. So it almost seems like the question around facility access is quite crucial. Some other clubs have it really, quite easy. There obviously is a challenge in certain parts. But one that we need to address if we're going to continue our girls playing cricket. And this is really valuable for me to know, and obviously Federation to address moving forward. So I will definitely loop you into that conversation. Thank you.
We have one more question before we move on to the next part of the presentation. So Nitya Shankar.
Yeah, hi. I'm speaking on behalf of Gothenburg Cricket Club, and one of the problems we face is we have a lot of new young girls from school willing to try and want to test us before they start serious or give up. And the problem is they don't have kit, and they do not want to invest on it yet because they're not sure if they want to play forever. So is there a plan from SCF to give kits to the club for the women because this is a problem and we don't have enough kids, and we always use what was thrown away by men, and that is too big for us, even for the grown-up women.
Yeah. Excellent question, and I'm sure you're not the only ones who are having the same issue, but excellent question. And I wouldn't want to be wearing, leftover kit or handed over kit from the men, because it's not in a safe environment. It's not actually what you want from young girls because of the weight, the size. It kind of takes the fun element away and the coaching points away, and it becomes harder to sort of actually play good quality cricket. The point around, can SCF support that? Let me take this up with Monica. And the federation. I'm pretty sure there is support that we can provide, and there should be some support. I'm pretty sure that from a girl's perspective, from a kit perspective, there are opportunities to get kit involved. It's an expensive sport, but we also need to make sure that the girls are ready to take that step, and there needs to be almost an intermediate between the two sections to try and get them to sort of invest in the kit. There are certain strategies involved to sort of allow girls to test it, play it, and then invest in it. So, can I take this opportunity to speak to you offline about this, because I think this is an area that we need to sort of address and give you some support with, and how to signpost you in the right direction. Is that okay?
Sorry, I was speaking in mute. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, no problem. We've all done that. Don't worry. So what I'll do, Monica, if that's all right, and if it's all right by the audience, I would like to sort of move on to the next bit, and then I can continue taking on some questions towards the back end. Is that okay?
There are no more questions for this phase.
Okay, so moving on to the national structure. This is the second segment of the presentation. We are now looking into the areas that we need to address at the top end of our triangle in order to be successful, but also has a huge value on what we're doing at the bottom end, or at least in the middle of our triangle, in order to make ourselves more progressive at the international level. So we have a current squad, which is our national team. This is a recent squad that traveled to Spain. There is a squad there that has developed over the last 2 to 3 years. There's a couple of new faces in there as well from the teams that were progressive in the Nordic involvement. But this is obviously our squad national team. There is 13 players there. And then we have introduced this new segment around the national team, the national structure, which is our development team. And the development team was an idea which we came up with in the summer, both from the men's perspective, the youth perspective, and also the women's perspective, is to have this challenging environment of 25 players involved in the national team structure moving into next year, 2023. This will allow us to work with more consistent players, but also it will allow us to develop our contact time better with the girls that we want involved in the system for longer. And hopefully this will give us a great opportunity to sort of progress at national level. Some of the key factors in the successful teams across international cricket are the ones who are investing time regularly with the girls over a long period of time, and they're the ones who've been successful, not every tournament picking new girls or boys for that matter. So this is our national team. On the next slide, we have highlighted and selected our development squad, and our development squad is made up of individuals where I traveled to the north and the south to go and have a look in an open trial environment, and hopefully give the girls an opportunity to showcase their skills over a 4 or 5 week training sessions, or sort of 4 or 5 training sessions, sorry, and select the best players available during them 2 sessions. Now, I'm mindful some girls didn't turn up or weren't aware of that, and there is an opportunity in 2023 to come to the open trials again, but also be involved in our regional performance sessions, and this is where the next round of development squads will be selected. Now, congratulations to everybody in our squad of 25. But one thing this does allow us to do is develop a performance culture, which allows us to drive each one of the girls to get better during the down period, but also really give accountability to their performances in the summer. There is obviously a couple of girls who are missing from this squad who feel that they've, should have been selected. But actually what it does is allows us to be really progressive in our, selection, but also allows us to travel across Sweden to see some of the developing talent and hopefully get them involved into our structure, our national structure. So congratulations to the 2 squads. Just moving on to the next slide. Hopefully for all you individuals who are involved in women's cricket, obviously 2023 is a big year for women's cricket because we do have in June, we are working towards the ICC qualifiers, which the venue has not been decided, but the dates have been from ICC, and this is an area that we need to be working towards. And as you can see, there's a handful of activity that's happening at the top end of the program, probably more so than it's happened before. So with that said in mind, there's a couple of things in terms of our build-up. And if you are involved in either women's cricket or you're as part of the national team squads, or you're looking to break into these squads, you need to be sort of aware of what's happening. So in January, February, we do have, for the first time, we will be having conditioning sessions and cricketing sessions more often, more regularly with our development squad players and our national players across the 25. We are sending a group over to a pre-season camp in Denmark as well, and they're going to be involved in that. We then have a transition sessions into the outdoor activity where there will be training sessions gearing up towards preparations. We will be having early pre-fitness testing. So the current girls in the structure have been given their appraisals, but also their goals for next year in terms of what they need to be working on, both from a fitness perspective, but also from a cricket perspective. And that has been highlighted post Spain. Then sort of moving into the April, which is quite a busy period because we have and will be having this element of regional squads performance camps. They'll be coming together the back end of April. And from there, we will obviously bring an opportunity to bring some of our girls either into the development squad or obviously select them into our national program. And then working from there, we'll move forward towards the qualifiers. We will at some point announce some open trials for the girls in the North, the Midlands and the South. And any female who feels they want to give themselves an opportunity to get in front of the coaches and myself, this is an opportunity for you to sort of come along and practice and showcase your skills. And then hopefully the best girls will be involved in our regional program and then obviously selected into our development and national program. May is quite a busy one. So if you are involved in women's cricket, building up to June, the national players who are selected will be requested to play games, will be requested to train a lot more, building up to sort of June. So the last month will be around performance camps. So please, can I just give you an early indication that if your player is selected from your club, first of all, congratulations. Secondly, most importantly, be flexible with them because we will require them to be playing, in their preparations for the qualifiers in terms of games, training sessions, etc., etc. So just be mindful of that. What we also want to do is have some friendly games. And if there are some clubs out there that want to, either invite the development squad to come and play against, I'm more than happy to sort of get them involved and get them playing. So if you are part of a club here and would like, a friendly game against the development squad, please do get in touch. I would be happy to sort of entertain that, absolutely. And then moving into June, which is also all about the qualifiers, which will obviously decide whether we go from Group 2 into Group 1. And then that is, the second qualifier, which is in August, which is the finals. And now the winner from there obviously does go to the World Cup, which is a fantastic reward and recognition straight away. So there is a lot to play for. We do have some quality teams in our squad, in our group. So we are going to be challenged. So we have to make sure that we are ready for this. July, there is some summer challenges around, and that's areas where we want to play more games, more progressive games, both for the national team and the development team, with the focus of trying to compete in the Nordic Nordic sort of tournament, which is penciled in for August. And that will be a mixture between the two teams, and obviously, and hopefully the qualifiers that we've got in August. And then there's this second performance camp that we're looking to run. Hopefully, we've got the approval for a national tour in October, which we're already in discussions with. So that will be an opportunity to hopefully get on that tour. And then from a development perspective, we'll be announcing a winter squad based on the performances in the summer. So that's an outline in terms of women's cricket. There's obviously, from a national team perspective, this is not including anything from a development domestic structure. There is obviously a lot that Waldo and the team have put forward, but unfortunately has been put on hold due to various aspects. But we want to get them approved as quickly as possible in order to develop our girls, but also progress our system so that we can compete, because at the moment we need to be better in what we're doing. So moving on to the next slide, which is current learnings from the national structure. Obviously, it was my first event traveling with the national team, and what a fantastic week it was of learning about the girls, learning about how well they handle the pressure, but also seeing the girls improve. You know, from our first game, it was quite clear that, you know, the structure that was currently in place needs a lot of work. The girls have tremendously improved during that week, and it just goes to show the more games that they're playing, the better the learning is, and the more progressive they are in terms of their cricket. One of the key factors that we've learned is, especially for coaches, girls, administrators who are involved in clubs at the moment, some of the key areas that we need to focus on is controlling our wides. We bowled 98 wides across the tournament. That is equivalent to 16 overs in a T20 match without any consequence. So, you know, that unfortunately cannot be consistent going into the qualifiers. So if there's anything that you girls are going to be working on, or you coaches want to get your girls to be working on, it is to control wides, and obviously extras fit in that as well. We have a low dot ball percentage for our bowlers. We actually need to increase that, and what we find is the more we increase, obviously the better the chances of our win ratio is, and that's something that we've started to get our statistics around, and that tells us exactly at what point we are likely to win a game, or we could be very unlikely to win a game. Now, compared to a team like Italy, obviously the bowlers are a lot more consistent, have a less wides count, less extras count, which helps them sort of get closer to the end result. So we need to sort of be better in what we're doing, and the girls are fully aware, especially from an individual's point of view, in their appraisals and what they need to be addressing and the value of that. Obviously, from a batting perspective, we have not everybody, but over the tournament, a percentage of 50+% of high dot ball percentages. Now, if you're thinking as a coach, well, what does that mean? That means that we need to decrease this percentage in order for our batters to have an opportunity to score better. So the higher the dot ball percentage, the less runs we're scoring, or the less singles we are taking. So that's more dot balls in the scorebook. If we can increase them in finding a selection of shots where we can find a single or a boundary, that obviously sort of allows us to reduce our percentage. So it gets us batting better, but it also allows us to win more games frequently. The area of fitness and fielding in terms of the standards, which we'll come on to in a second, the mental, emotional control, the cricket intelligence, and the skill adaptability around the culture is something that I want to talk about in the next couple of slides. Okay, so talking about bowling, so this is the next 5 slides are going to be reinforced around club cricket, for coaches to reinforce with their players, and most importantly for players to continuously focus on when they're trying to get better as cricketers. So obviously reducing wides and extras is what we spoke about from a national perspective, but also certain individuals have a higher percentage of wides and extras, and they know who they are. They don't need mentioning on this platform. We need to be able to provide confidence with their bowling action, so that needs to be challenged in an environment, not just in a game, but also in a training environment. So your coaching sessions should allow them to be challenged in terms of the environment. It's hard to recreate the environment of a match in a training session, but as much as we possibly can to try and create that pressure is something that we need to try and develop on as much as possible. A role clarity in bowling. If you're opening the bowling and you're looking to swing the ball, you're not going to come back and try and bowl bouncers or bowl length ball. If you're a natural swing bowler, you swing it. If you can't swing the ball, you try and get closer to the stumps. So these are little messages that we need to get across to our girls, because what we did see is, whilst the girls have a good understanding of bowling, sometimes the role clarity and the execution can go amiss a little bit. So again, execution of skills up front, in the middle, and the back end. We need to be better at them, especially at the death bowling. I want to hear from coaches about their death bowlers. If you've got some excellent bowlers who can bowl death, so Yorkers, variation, bowl to their field, this is something that I want to get an understanding of. But also, more importantly, I want to see them girls. Hopefully, they can be in our structure, as early as sort of March or April. In terms of preparation, we spoke a lot about this in Spain, but I think this needs to be homed in on club cricket as well. Is it needs to be accepted, the fact that it's there. Preparation is very key, and you need to accept the fact that you have to do your preparation. So that means getting at least 12 to 18, maybe 3 to 4 overs of preparation of bowling before you go into a game. You need to understand the mechanics of your body, and you need to understand what that looks like. You need to appreciate the fact that this has to happen on a regular basis in order for you to be more consistent with your routine and get better of an understanding. Often I see a coach, doing catching in a circle, and that's the warm-up done. And then we wonder why we bowl so many extras. A very progressive coaching environment will allow bowlers to be challenged, but also be in rhythm, get them to be focused on the first ball, but allow them to have an opportunity to get their mechanics working and their body working in a better way, which is more effective for ball one. And then we need to adopt that in a regular routine, and hopefully you can provide that opportunity to showcase that adoption in terms of your routine, and hopefully it will rub off in your environment, and allowed to be successful throughout your structure, not just in your team, but also in your club as well. And the last one for me is quite an important one, knowing your field positions and what you're trying to do with it when you're bowling. Often we have a plan, but we can't execute that because we don't know the feel to it and why we're doing it. As coaches, we need to challenge that. We need to allow players to understand what that challenge looks like, but also we need to be in a position where we can challenge the fielding positions in order to get the execution right. So that pressure needs to be put on in practice environment as well. So this is something that I would encourage not only bowlers to try, but also for our coaches to implement in their training sessions. So this is from bowling. Again, the next message is from a batting perspective, and again, to be reinforced in club cricket. Into the next slide, what we will be seeing is an opportunity for key messages that we've learned on tour. We've got some really progressive batters. We've got some excellent young potential. But what we do find is, as you can see, a rotation of strike. We have a very high dot ball percentage, and we need to be able to reduce that as much as possible in order to be progressive. Often this results in getting more singles, which means our overall total moves from 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 and over, which then obviously takes us to from 120 to 140 to 160, which then puts up in the higher category of better win percentages. So something as simple as finding a single might be overall an effect to winning more games. So whether it's a strike rotation against seam bowlers, And then often when we face spinners, this is where the challenge comes, especially if you're not comfortable using your feet. So again, from a coaching environment, if you can challenge the element of spin, especially slow loopy spin, and what you're going to be doing with that, and that is part of your timing and your transfer of balance and your shot selection in terms of understanding what you're going to be doing. Again, seam option, a defensive option is probably your best option, but also understanding when to defend and when to attack, both from a technical point of view, but also from a tactical point of view. This is something that we need to be better on. Running and calling between the wickets, again, knowing when to call, knowing what can we call, and also which helps in reducing our dot ball percentage. And overall, we have to be better in trying to get, a better score in our T20 matches. So we have to be able to challenge and allow our bowling department to win more effective games. And this is something that we're going to be challenged on in the qualifiers in June. From a perspective of fielding, what we found was attacking the ball more often, so attacking the line more often, catching with confidence, which needs to be a stronger element, but also being able to throw short distance and long distance. I think the key area that I spotted from a throwing perspective is, we haven't thrown enough in order for our shoulders to feel like there's a routine and we have a strong throwing technique. I'm really big on throwing, but I'm also really big on getting your body to do and help you with your throwing. So it's a technical area. And if this is something that you're not sure about, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help out from any of these coaching perspectives. But obviously fielding is quite close to me. So I want to make sure that we get better with our fielding, and we can show intent in our field, and we can save 30 to 40 runs. Even a small target like 15 runs or 20 runs in the field will have a positive effect on us. The awareness of off the ball activity, again, sometimes we switch off in the field, concentration goes. This is an area that we got found out a little bit in Spain, but we have to be better at. One of the key areas that I would say is just understanding what off the ball activity looks like. So if you don't have the ball in your hand, what you can do to help the person who has got the ball when they're throwing at the non-strikers end or the strikers end, what we can do as a whole unit. So hopefully some of the girls can come back and sort of explain what that looks like. Strengths and weaknesses of fielding positions. Often what I see is if you're not a boundary rider, somehow you find yourself on a boundary. And if that's something that at club cricket we can get rid of, or we can instruct a little bit better, if they have got strengths of fielding inside the circle. I'm not saying don't do that in a practice environment, but also try and do that in a game environment where you can get better at doing both. Because what we find, or what I am finding at international level, is there's only a handful of girls that can do boundary riding, and the rest of the girls are confident being in the circle. So we have to have more athletic fielders in our team. And if there's anything that, from a club cricket perspective, that we can improve, is simply throwing 10 to 15 yards, even 30 yards from inside the circle to the keeper or the bowler. Can we throw that straight, accurate, with pace, and more consistently? If there's one thing you can take from this slide, is if coaches can work on that, or players can work on that, throwing in a straight line with a high degree of success to the keeper with pace. It's an easy thing said, but it's a hard thing to achieve consistently. And if we can do that, we have a better opportunity to affect runouts, but also we set the standard of our throwing, which allows the opposition to understand what our standard of fielding is like. Okay, so some of the other stuff that we spoke about was, from a personal perspective, what I found is obviously having some pride in your fitness. I've moved the fitness standard scores from last year's, from 13 plus. I'm moving them up to 14.5. This is an area that we have to get better on from a yo-yo perspective, and our girls need to be fitter in order to compete for the demands of the game. Whilst that's a challenge, this is why it's under the personal element. You have to find time to sort of develop your fitness and get better. So again, commitment to training is big. I understand everyone's got family requirements, family commitments, duties that they need to do. You've got some educational commitments, etc., etc. But this is where, if you're going to be a national player and we need to be better in our culture, we have to sort of understand what that looks like from a national perspective. So from a personal perspective also, I want people to understand that there are competition for places now with an element of this development squad coming in. We've got 25 places up for who are, effectively playing for 11 places. And that will only develop our girls to get stronger, fitter, more competitive, but also challenge each other to get better. And that fits in around my expectations for the national teams, lifestyle choices, commitment towards your training programs, element of your fitness and keeping on top of that, but also develop your personal ambition to be the best you possibly can. And what we're looking for now, and what I'm most definitely looking for from a new crop of players, is the element of just being a better athlete. It doesn't always get you in the 11, but it definitely competes and gets you in a position where you can compete with the other person. Now that comes down to performance KPIs, but you also have to be able to be fit enough to be on the pitch, and obviously develop your skills and execute your skills. So hopefully this will drive our girls to be better from a personal management perspective, moving into the next year. Into the next screen. So what we end up looking at is, from a mental perspective, this is probably the big area for me that we, the girls over the 5 days that we were in Spain, from a mental side of the game, there was a roller coaster ride of emotions, but people were understanding, the emotional element of playing for the national team. And there's a lot of opportunities to almost develop your emotional control, but understand what that culture looks like. The signs of resilience and how people come back, being adaptable to the situation, to the circumstances, to your own personal circumstances, but also to the situation of the game. But also, these are the areas that I would be looking at from, the future national team players, is on how adaptable you are to perform a different role and also execute as well. And having the ability to have a really good mindset is hugely important. And this is an area that we spoke about regularly whilst we were in Spain. And this will hopefully drip feed into our national program in terms of, being strong and competitive in terms of your mindset, but also being adaptable for challenges. And one of the biggest ones there is concentration. So again, in your coaching environments, in your club area, trying to develop your concentration, it's not an easy thing to do, but it needs to be done over a long period of time with an element of high degree and high risk, but also high reward as well. So we have to try and get into a position where we're working on our concentration. That might be simply fielding positions, that might be getting into a fielding area, that might be taking 100 catches, it might be batting for long periods of time against an off spinner, left arm spinner with a degree of rotation. It could be elements of completely different areas that you can work on, but we have to get better at concentration across all our formats. Okay, so one of the key areas is over the next period of time, the element of culture. Culture is driven and hopefully will dictate what our national team looks like, what our process looks like, but also what we look like as a brand. One of the key areas that I spoke to the girls about is you have to be a little bit more independent in what you're doing. We use this notion of no spoon feeding. We have to get away from that in terms of providing everything for you. What I really want is having independent cricketers who are thinking cricketers, who are progressive, but also can deliver by themselves, but also can think by themselves under pressure. Often we see, players, athletes, boys and girls, to be fair, often looking to the sidelines for instructions. And this is where I want to make sure that we become redundant in terms of a coaching management team. We want to be able to be, relying on the players to make all the successful decisions and the right decisions under pressure. We want to be committed to our national training sessions and our fitness programs and the criteria of fitness that's been on there, and obviously with a degree of consequence in terms of if you're not meeting them requirements, but also looking at your performance moving forward. So there's an element of accountability. And probably the one big thing from a coaching perspective is, there's a notion of understanding. Is probably the right word that I'm looking for. That once you travel with a team, you're a national player and you should be selected to play a game. That's not the case. I've been in many tours where players have traveled and not selected to play because we're not handing out opportunities because you're there. We want to make sure that you're selected and you're competing for your spot. Once your spot becomes available, you grasp it with both hands. And this is the element of culture that we're trying to create. The competition for places, once you get your opportunity, you should be taking it. So this is not a free-for-all. We want to get our coaches to understand that as well, that once your club player, one of your female players is selected for the national team, they have to be performing in order to keep in that national team or stay in that national team, but also they're not guaranteed a place in that national team. And even if the girls have been selected in Spain, does not guarantee them a selection moving forward. It means you've just got to work hard to earn the right to play for the shirt. Again, accountability on performance and an opportunity to perform better moving forward. So we really have a no excuse culture. I hear a lot of excuses. I couldn't train because of facility. I couldn't train because of time, or I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. A 30-minute fitness session, an hour-long ball. It doesn't take long to get that sorted. It's a mindset, but eventually people get found out, and this is an area that we need to move away from, because females who expect to have everything, but they need to be in a position where there is a no excuse culture brought in, and they judge primarily on performances and their ability to execute their plan. And then obviously moving into my next slide, an area where we've obviously got questions again for myself. It's key that we understand this notion of slides that I've presented, because that unfortunately is the reality of that's happening at the national level. We've got a lot of individual girls who have great skill, great quality, but we need to sort of really focus on driving that home with a view of trying to compete for the qualifiers. And we can only do that if we are developing our girls at local, domestic level, at clubs, in order to get them ready for national team. What we don't want to be doing at the national team is doing what the clubs should be doing, and that's developing their skills. They should be developing their skills at club cricket with a view of stepping up and even focusing on more challenge, with a view of moving away from the basic skills. And often what we see is the girls who are progressing up, there is a big gap between basic skills and advanced skills. In order to compete and for international cricket, we need advanced skills to compete. And this is an area where I would humbly request everybody, especially if you're at a club and you're in charge or you're a coach, is to really focus on developing the basic skills for the girls and increasing that as much as possible, because this is an area where we don't have a lot of time to develop our quality of cricket for the qualifiers, so time is of an essence. So I would really appreciate if the coaches could focus on that from a club perspective, and individual players take some ownership on developing that away from the national team, because that is where we really would need to focus on the high intensity stuff, and sometimes we can't. So hopefully that ends my presentation. There is a chance for questions. I'm happy to take questions on here, or I'm happy to take questions on email as well. If there is somebody who wants to sort of ask a question on email, if you feel that this is not the platform, I'm happy to work with coaches to reinforce some of the key messages that I've gone today. And most importantly, I'm happy to speak to any girl, any female, any young player, any athlete who wants to take up cricket and feels that they could potentially compete for the national team or our development structure or in our pathway. So please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Kasim. There has been a bit of interaction in the chat, which I will share with you. First of all, we have to just address the fact that we had a typo on one of the slides where we were missing a name in the development squad. Player Harir Shamto from Lund was actually selected on the development squad earlier this fall and was presented as such, but we had missed it in the presentation. So we just agreed about that it was a typo in the chat group. So I'm just saying it out loud just for everybody to know. And then I got a comment from Amit about the need for access documentation for easy primer and introduction to the game for everybody, and that this presentation would also be, it would be very beneficial if we can also send it out in Swedish as well as English to attract locals. So we made a promise that it's a very valid point. So I said that we will make sure to do that. So just you and I remind ourselves to make sure about that. And then you have received a question about, I think when you had the schedule up, the slide with the different activities going on throughout the months in spring and summer, Fatima had a question about any dates on when pre-season starts.
Yeah, pre-season schedule is being put into place at the moment. I will get out all that information to the national squads in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully you will have that as soon as possible, as soon as that's confirmed.
Okay, good. And let's say that we have been working in office with our yearly calendar and timeline that as soon as we feel that it's really complete, we will happily publish that so everybody can see the different activities going on throughout the year, both in terms of activities for the national teams and development teams, but also league and formal meetings and other webinars and education, different courses and everything, what have you. We want everybody to know well ahead of time, so it makes for easier planning for everybody to participate. So that will happen also within short. No other questions here, and I cannot see any raised hands. Are there anyone that wants to ask questions to Kasim at this point? Doesn't seem like it. We have still 7 minutes, but I think we have one more slide, don't we?
Yes, we do. And that is just to inform everybody of the next webinar, which will be around club development, and that is on the 8th of January 2023. At this point, I would like to thank everybody for staying with me for well over an hour and 20 minutes. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and a peaceful sort of winter break. And hopefully we will be back for the next webinar on the 8th of January. So if there's no further questions, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. And again, reach out to me if there isn't, if there's no platform here for you to reach out. So please get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Kasim, for the brief presentation. It was very nice to see.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And get some thumbs up and thank yous from the crowd. That's really good. And we will share this, the recording of this webinar, just as we will very soon send out the recordings, which we have now edited from the last webinar that was in November. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Monica, and wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Likewise.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.